Hey guys, I'm back in Dare to Defy 3 Stage 4. This is a rerun because I wanted to try to save Galuf and Quina. So I decided to go for this party instead, which is Galuf, Garnet and Rydia. Now this is a pretty safe party overall, however this is going to be a very long fight. In real time it took me just over half an hour to complete the stage, however it should be fairly safe. Plus, this isn't really an optimal run. I made quite a lot of mistakes throughout, chief of which I forgot that the enemies will instantly go into force time at 49%, and I also mistimed the Aerith LD call, both of which would make a big difference if I adjusted for. Good thing about this fight is I don't think you need a lot of ultimate weapons. The one that's most important is the Great Sword for Galuf. But essentially here, the idea is going into 2 Rydia force times in total, and I killed them pretty early on force time number 2. So with optimal play, it might be even possible to finish this off in 1 force time. But otherwise, if you're lacking ultimate weapons and such, don't worry about it. You should still be able to do this fight. It's just going to take a little longer. Now first off, in terms of adjustments, and I'll mention this throughout the fight. So first off, if you have Aerith, I highly recommend to take Garnet out and put Aerith in. It should make the fight significantly faster. Why? Because first of all, Aerith can supercharge the force gauge. So at the start, you can go into something like Aerith PT mode and win the force gauge race and enter force time before the boss. And if you can bring boss A below 49% within that force time, which should be very easy to do. Each boss only has 120 million HP, so you really only need to do more than 60 million HP to boss A in 1 force time. Then that means overall you only need to sit through 1 enemy force time with Aerith, which is a big time saver. Here, as you can see, I've already entered 1 force time because this party lacks a force gauge charger, so there's no way for you to win the force gauge race. Could be possible if you spam Garnet's PT mode and go into summon mode early enough, but I decided not to waste summon and PT mode to win the force gauge race and just sit through the entire thing. On top of that, Aerith has Seal Evil and she has debuff immunity as well, so with Aerith you don't need to worry about dispelling the enemy buffs. Here what I did is to bring 2 dispel calls and an Aerith LD call ability just to make sure I have enough to deal with the enhancement chips. And so with Aerith you can bring 3 whole new calls and focus more on damage. Aerith also ensures that you don't have to worry about debuffs. The force time debuffs are guaranteed hit, so these debuffs here will bypass Aerith, but the paralysis you don't have to worry about. So in a nutshell, if you have Aerith, bring Aerith over Garnet. Otherwise Garnet herself isn't too bad. The only drawback is she can't charge the force gauge. So sit through 1 whole force gauge here. And something that I need to emphasize, if you're going through this, do not attempt to dispel these buffs on the bosses. That's number 1. Number 2, I played it a bit risky at the start here, where I tried to save all of Rydia's LD. On hindsight, it's much safer if you use 1 Rydia's LD right before the enemies enter force time, because they could potentially kill Garnet or Rydia once they are in force time. If you have Rydia's LD buff up, then you don't have to worry about anything. You will dodge every single attack in the enemy's force time. None of the attacks are guaranteed hit. So don't make the same mistake I did. I was thinking I might need to save all of her LD for the rest of the fight, but you really don't need. You can use 1 before the enemy's force time, and you should use 1 before the enemy's force time. There's no need to dispel the enhancement chip at the start, or dispel their force time buff, the charge buff, because you still have to wait for them to finish their force time anyway. When they are in force time, they will automatically heal 80% of the damage that you do, so entering into your force time now is just a waste of your force time. And if you're going to have to wait through the whole 10 turns, then you might as well let the enemy buffs fall off by themselves. They only last for 2 turns. So here you can see I did take some big chunk of damage. And this is why I was saying if you have Rydia here use her LD before the enemy's force time, it just removes the risk of potentially dying in the first enemy force time. Here is one of the mistakes I made. I think on hindsight, it might be better to wait until the enemies are completely out of force time. I thought of just entering into force time here so that the enemy's force gauge is stuck at 0%, but it's really pointless to do this because they will automatically get a full force gauge once you exit your force time because of boss A. And like I said, I completely forgot about that trigger. So you might as well just wait until Rydia gets her next turn and then enter into force time then. From here on, it's pretty easy. Rydia's force time, you will dodge everything, Galuf and Garnet will counter attack. So you just have to leave this until boss C hits 89% and come to the first shield. Alright, so when the shields are up from boss C, Garnet really helps a lot because her LD follow-up can potentially remove either the 200 or the 300,000 shield, or at least put a large dent in the 500,000 shield. Ideally speaking, what you want is to get through the shields as efficiently as possible, so you can do things like using Garnet's LD here rather than her Force Echoes, because her LD actually increases her overhead stacks by 2, which makes the next follow-up attack come sooner. Unless the enemies are already at shield level 3 at 500,000 brave value, in which case you will probably be better served using her Force Echoes to completely break that shield. Here really what you want to do is keep a very close eye on the turn order bar as well as the number of stacks on Garnet's overhead, and try to plan so that her follow-up attack will break through the 200 or 300k shield, so that you can save your harder hitting attacks such as Galuf LD or Rydia's LD or EX to take care of the 500,000 shield. This is the second mistake that I did. I forgot to use Aerith's LD call ability. Once the shields are gone, I highly recommend to use Aerith's LD call ability right there, because when boss B hits 69%, it will apply the enhancement chip once more on all enemies. The ideal scenario is, if possible, bring boss B all the way down to 29% health while Seal Evil is up. If you can't, it's fine. It's actually good enough that the Aerith LD Call ability prevents the 69% enhancement chip. Here, since I forgot and enhancement chip went out, I had to use one of the dispel calls to get rid of it. It might seem that it's not much of a difference because if you use Aerith LD Call, you waste 1 force time turn. If you use a dispel call, you also waste 1 force time turn. However, there is one big difference in the sense that Aerith LD Call prevents the buff from coming up. Whereas if you want to use a dispel call to get rid of the buff, there's going to be a window of time where your counter attacks will deal no damage. So right here, buff is up, and I'm unfortunately on Rydia's turn and she can't even remove that buff. So very unfortunate. Not gonna lie, I considered resetting the fight there because here I couldn't remove the buff. But already quite a lot of time has passed and I thought just continue on the fight. And I'll just mention the mistakes I made in the video. This is why if you're using this party, I highly recommend to bring 2 dispel calls. I used Paine and Faris, but really any AoE dispel call works. So Balthier is a good option, Vanille is a good option. There's actually quite a lot of call abilities that has AoE dispel, so any one of them works. The best would be the Aerith LD call, but the only drawback with that call is you need to time it, and don't mistime it like I did. Now at 59%, the Golem boss C will reapply the shield, so if you go through it again, one reminder here is you have to ensure that Rydia's LD buff is up on at least herself and Garnet, because at this point, when they are shielded, Boss A and Boss B will auto paralyze your party each time they attack you. However, the paralysis buff can be evaded. So keep a very close eye on Rydia's LD buff, and if you have to, use it to refresh the buff. Here will be the third mistake that I made, and this is a very big mistake. I popped summon because I was thinking I could use the time in summon to win the new force gauge race, since you exit force time ahead in the force gauge bar and the bosses are at 0% force gauge. But I completely forgot that boss A will automatically go into force time once it hits 49%. It doesn't when you're in summon mode, but the moment you exit summon mode they will. And there's no way for you to hit 100% force gauge inside one summon mode. So don't do what I did here, don't pop summon. Just use that last attack in the force time, and that should bring boss A below 50% health. Boss A will enter force time again, and essentially you just repeat what you did right at the very start of the fight. The ideal scenario here is also that Aerith's Seal Evil is still up when boss A enters force time. If you can get this scenario going, then you prevent the charge buff that they buff themselves, and you don't have to waste a dispel call. My heart sank when I saw this happen. This was the second time in the fight where I considered to just reset and do a fight again. But you know, the bosses are already low enough, and I'm pretty sure that one more force time from Rydia will be able to do it. So I just pushed on with the fight. So really, like I said, you know, this fight is far from optimal, and while this run took me half an hour, if you make the adjustments I mentioned throughout the video, you should have a much faster fight. Although I guess it should still take a pretty long time, maybe about 20 minutes real time. But you know, this is there to defy, and you know, if you can lock in units like Rydia and Galuf here, and even Garnet, you know, you can then save the harder hitting characters like Ruby Kante and Quina for the last 3 stages. Anyway, this part of the fight is pretty easy. Same as the first enemy force time, I would highly recommend to have Rydia's LD buff up to prevent the risk of dying. The risk of dying is actually pretty low overall. You can comfortably survive the entire force time here without dying, especially since Garnet has last stand. But you know, better safe than sorry, so have Rydia's evasion up, and the enemy's force time is just a waiting game essentially. I did get quite lucky here because the enemy's exit force time just as Garnet's turn came up. So this is a perfect time to go into BT mode with Garnet, because Boss C is about to hit 29%. In fact, Boss C hit 29% right here. So the shields are up, and you essentially have one whole BT mode with Garnet to get rid of the shields, which is actually fairly easy to do, especially if you have a Force Echoes as well. You can use one of it to take care of the 500,000 shield. Take note though that the final shields, the boss will absorb thunder attacks, so do not use thunder attacks. It's okay if Garnet is thunder enchanted because Rydia has her true imperil up. So what this means is that as long as Garnet is also hitting for water damage, you will be hitting for elemental weakness, regardless of what other element is it. Just do not use innate thunder attacks such as a Peridot Thunderflash until the shields are gone. So like here, I've gotten rid of the shields, so it's now safe to use Peridot Thunderflash once again. Overall, it just means that while the shields are up, plan your attacks very carefully, try to use her force attack to deal with the 500k shield, and her Aquamarine Waterglint to deal with the 200 and 300k shield. So buff is up again, which is really unfortunate. Yeah, don't worry about it. I just used the Aerith LD call here. Didn't really do anything, but might as well. Go into Rydia's force time, don't delay any longer, because the bosses gain force extremely quickly at this part of the fight. Here I used my last dispel call, and this is really all you need. There's no more buffs for the rest of the fight that you have to worry about. This shows how important the dispel calls are. Yes, mistakes were made, and because of those mistakes it's good to have the dispel calls as backup. And you may not need to use all of them. If you time Aerith LD call nicely, then you may get away with just one other dispel call, but really just load up your party with dispel calls otherwise, unless you're having Aerith in your main party. From here on, the rest of the fight is just the usual tank and spank. Let the bosses attack, nothing will connect with you, and you will build the force gauge extremely quickly because Rydia's FR gives you 50% each time you dodge. That's it for this run. As always, I hope the video has been helpful, and if you enjoyed the content, do leave a like, comment or subscribe, really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next Dare to Defy stage. Bye!